Hello and welcome to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. This is your host, Ashley from Ashley Taylor Wellness. On this podcast, we talk about all things beauty, health, wellness, and optimization. Being a high maintenance hippie represents not being boxed in, as I strongly believe that one size does not fit all. I'm a nurse turned coach, and I have learned so much about both conventional and alternative options, and I want to help you expand your options. I'm here to inspire you to learn new ways to improve your quality of life and to take your power back. I'm so excited that you're here, so let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. I'm very excited about our guest today. His name is Ernesto Parisi, and I found him on Instagram several years ago, and his content absolutely blew me away. I resonated with every single post. I share it with my clients, and I'm surprised that his account is not as big as a holistic psychologist because this content is so good. And I don't know if people realize how powerful it is. So I'm really excited to dive into this topic today. And Ernesto is a Master NLP Coach and teacher. So thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait to get started.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for having me. It's an honor for me to be here.
Thank you. So where are you calling from, if anyone isn't familiar with where you are in the world?
I'm calling from Switzerland. I grew up born in Switzerland, originally Italian, and my parents came into Switzerland in 1965. So I'm always Swiss. It's kind of a half Swiss and half Italian. It's a good mix, actually. And I'm just next to Zurich, one of our main cities here in the country.
Very nice. Do you if you've lived there your whole life, I would imagine that you love it, but have you been to the US before?
Yes, many times. I counted actually just recently, and I was visiting the US about 20 times because I studied also in Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And but mostly I went there for leisure, fun, traveling the country because it's just a very, very great country. I love it. I love the cities, and actually was also in Arizona.
You were? Okay.
Yes.
I never
yes.
thought I would end up here in all the places, but so happy to be here. Do you think that there's a big difference in the way that people believe or perceive here in the US versus where you're living? Do you think that the US is different, whether that's positively or negatively? What differences, if any, do you see?
Yes, I think there is a significant difference, and that's a difference where, my experience, see people in the US much more believing in what they do. Okay, so they can achieve anything they want. Doesn't matter what it is. Where I'm standing right now, I'm using what I have right now to get there.
Mm-hmm.
They are more open-minded to that. Of course, we have also people here which do that, but in generic speaking, we are more, more kind of not do too much, don't risk too much, keep the risk low, and so on. And that's what I see that the US a little bit different, So
Very interesting.
Open mindset, yeah.
Very interesting. So you do coach clients, and would you say that the majority of them are in one country or all over?
All over.
All over. Okay.
Yeah. That's also interesting. Yeah.
The power of the internet. I'm so grateful for it.
Yes.
Okay. What got you into NLP and just understanding the subconscious mind? That's not something I learned about in school. I don't know if you did. So where did you hear about this and how did you get into it?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I didn't learn about that in school either. Even if that would be a huge asset for each one of us, and especially for our children. Why did I get into it? I mean, to be very clear, 10 years ago, I didn't give anything about this topic. I was absolutely not interested into it. But all of a sudden, when I was 16 years old, I got the first dizziness attack. So I was kind of dizzy. It can happen, one day now you get a dizziness attack, and then these things keep coming back. So I went to see my doctor, and he told me, that's not something physical. That's probably you are thinking too much. You are too much focusing on negative stuff. That was my doctor 30 years ago.
Okay.
And I didn't believe him. I told him, you guys, you are a doctor. You have a white coat on, so you have to fix me. And did that with antidepressive and so on. They really worked. They helped me a lot, but they didn't change the way I was seeing things, thinking, feeling, and all stuff. They were just suppressing it, which helped me, of course. So during the last 30 years ago, it went up and down. I'm all better, worse. And then almost 8 years ago, I was experiencing a heavier fatigue. coming to me. I was feeling heavy. I was feeling exhausted. But as usual, we say, okay, it's not really important right now. You have to keep going. You have to work. You have to earn money and so on. So I was kind of neglecting it. And it happened that one day I was really so exhausted that I couldn't get up in the morning. I was at bed. I was saying I had to go to work, but I just didn't have the power to get up. So that's where all the panic and anxiety attacks started. How do I feed my family, and how do I earn the money now, and all these type of things. Again, I want to see my doctors because I saw it so many times, and I got different antidepressants. They also again worked at the beginning, but they then stopped working all of a sudden, and then everything started from scratch. Panic attack, anxiety, completely lost of self-confidence, and so I really had no options to drop my belief that all this meditation all stuff is something for other people but not for me. I dropped that to say I have nothing to lose. So it doesn't cost me anything. I look into it. So I read tons of books like everybody does, and it was not the real message which I could cut. But then one book caught my attention, and it was about how brain science helps to get away or remove anxiety on a sustainable level. And that caught my attention. I bought that book, read it, and I did all the exercises in it. It could take some time. And after 3 months of intensive training, of doing these exercises, I felt that something is shifting. Something was different. I was not that many time in anxiety, and if I got in, I got very fast out of it again, because that doesn't mean that you don't experience anxiety anymore. The question is what you do with it. How do you respond to it? And then I wrote an email to this guy, which was a German psychologist, and he told me that actually 70% is NLP techniques. And that's where I said, okay, that's it. That's what I want to learn, because I think that's the key for myself. To get out of it. I did the trainings. I applied for the trainings in the US. After that, I learned so much about how these things actually work that sometimes I really was thinking, it's never too late, but why did I start it before learning this stuff? Because they are so important, so powerful, and it works. I saw it on myself. It works. And that's how I get into it. And then I decided, why don't give it to other people? Because I see it here when I talk to other people, friends, coworkers, you name it. Most of them struggle with the same issue, but they don't say anything. They keep it for themselves because of shame, because of, they don't want other people to know. And sooner or later, it's going to imbalance your mind. Your mind is already in an imbalanced state. It's going to make it even worse. And then where a panic attack starts, fatigue starts, and all these things, which today, it doesn't mean that I don't have panic attacks, as I said before, or anxiety or so, but it's different. You know why it happens. You know that most of the things which happens are lies coming from your mind. And so you can respond differently to it. That's why I do what I'm doing. I convinced that by doing these things on a regular basis, you get much better mental state. And mental states means that you see stuff also differently. You can adapt several perceptions, your mental filter, and it really helps on a daily basis.
Beautifully said. And what state is it that you just mentioned?
For example, you have to speak in front of people, which I usually never had a problem. But during that time, I was totally in a panic mode, and I had to speak in front of 2 people. And so how can I manage that? How can I get out of this loop of being in a panic mode when I have to speak in front of people? And I call that in a kind of a mental state. I call it an emotional state. And I think if you know what you can do to manage that emotional state, things in life changes, because your focus changes as well, and your feeling in the body changes, and then your energy level changes, basically everything.
Yes.
And that was my experience. Yeah. So that's why I think it's so good to know this stuff, and it helps, especially in these times which we are now.
Yes. So what does NLP stand for someone who might be hearing this for the first time?
Yes, it stands for neuro linguistic programming. It's basically a way of programming your nervous system to get results, sustainable results in your life. How do you do it? And NLP is, it's just a word, a kind of a description, but it's actually like Joe Dispenza says, like Tony Robbins says, all these big gurus. NLP, you find it everywhere. Mm-hmm. It's basically the way our mind works, how it processes information, and how you can change it. Yes. How you can retrain it, which doesn't mean that it's a 5-minute job, but it can be done. It can be done.
Yes. And you mentioned Tony Robbins. So I went to his event in 2019, Unleash the Power Within. And you mentioned taking antidepressants when you were feeling that panic. I have certainly been there too. SSRIs did not do much for me. I think that everyone's different. One size doesn't fit all. I will always respect someone's right to choose whatever is best for them. Yes. But you mentioned that you took these medications and then they stopped working. And Tony Robbins said at the event that, why is that? Why do so many people take these medications? They feel a sense of relief and then they go back. And what he shared was that this medication is competing with these negative thoughts. I've never heard that from a psychologist. And I really thought that was so helpful. So, okay, here's that medicine. Bless it if you're in a hole, but is there more that we can be doing to eventually not need that medication? Is that our only and best option?
I tried to explain it a little bit different. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's absolutely what Tony Robbins said. Yes, it's competing. And I said it is competing with my current pattern. And as long as this pattern runs, it produces thoughts, it produces feelings, it produces emotions, and this medication tries to cover it, stuff it down to make sure that you don't feel all this stuff. But the more this pattern runs, the more this neurological connection in the brain gets thicker because they are used, and there are electrical signals going through these brain connections and make these things thicker. And it comes a time where this medication with the highest doses is not able to cover these electrical signals anymore, this running, and then where it just stops working. You don't feel it anymore. And then the second pain starts to remove these things to get it out of your body. That's the second part, which can become very, very painful, But nevertheless, for me, this is my case, I don't say it saved my life, but it gave me a kind of relief to get starting doing the other work, which then with time, I could rebalance my mind in a way that it's competing. The new connection is competing with that old junk. And all of a sudden it starts to rebalance so that you don't always stay in the old, but also you can stay in the new and you feel comfortable with it.
Okay. So the subconscious mind, when people say that they need to process emotions and experiences, that goes over a lot of people's head, including my own in the beginning. And I can share a story about how I first became just even open-minded to the fact about how my mind works. What would you say the power of the subconscious mind is, and how much weight does that hold in our personality, our decision-making, and in our everyday life compared to the conscious mind?
So they say 5% is conscious and 95% is subconscious. It's for me very clear after all these years that the real power is in this 95%. And you can actually say that the conscious mind is a kind of our creative mind where we have all these ideas, all these nice things which we want to do. And the subconscious mind is our visual mind, which runs on tapes. And these tapes, they don't give them if our conscious mind has an idea. They have their own closed processes, their own tapes, and they run based on past experiences. And if we are not aligned, that means that we will probably pursue our goal for a certain time. But sooner or later, this 95% will take over. They're just too strong. Whenever you are not present, and we are most of our time not present, you basically do your old stuff. the thing which is well known to you. So all your self-talks, which can be potentially very destructive. You feel the way you felt back then. I look at it in a huge cruise ship where you have the captain on board and you have all the staff working. And with the captain say we go left, and you have to communicate that down to the staff who does that, it takes a while until the ship goes left. And same and then when he decides, oh no, we were left, you have to go right, and then the same thing happens again. So it takes always a while until the whole ship moves. Mm-hmm. And that's how I make this a kind of analogy between the conscious and subconscious mind. So you can actually say, if you call the conscious mind, someone is there, making these ideas. But if you want to call the subconscious mind, there is nobody there. This runs autonomously, based on tapes. And it's all about changing these tapes.
And we'll get into more of that. And I just thought that all of this was very hokey pokey. And I briefly shared a story with you before we started. So it's not a secret to my audience, but I had a lot of promiscuous activity at a young age, and I found love in the wrong places and had a lot of shame and guilt because of that, which also shaped my identity about who I was, what I was worthy of. But there was a certain sexual act that I performed when I was in high school, and I said, I will never do that again. Mm-hmm. Years later, I found this hypnosis that would basically make someone want to do the thing I said I would never want to do. And I told myself, I don't believe in this, but I'm going to try it. And truly 6 hours later of listening to this, I suddenly had a desire to do the thing I said I was never going to do. Consciously, I don't think I wanted that, but it seems like it did influence my subconscious in a way. Is there something to this? Because I would have said anything that, no, that would never be something I would entertain in my mind. And then that shifted because of the influence on my subconscious. So what would you say to that?
Definitely, I totally believe that this is possible, and that what you basically did works with your subconscious mind, because there has been so many studies, first of all, but also so many experiences of people who actually did hypnosis. I myself, and I was at that time in that dark space, I did also hypnosis too, to help myself. And now today I do self-hypnosis, which is almost the same. But the most important thing is that when you do these things and you begin to calm yourself down, where you get out of the beta brainwave, which is our daily stress mode, your mind begins to feel safe. Your body begins to feel safe. And that's the first thing to do before anything. If you want to work with your subconscious mind, you have to reach a way or state that you are at home, you are somewhere where you know your environment, feel safe in that environment, and then your mind starts slowly to open up. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that it opens up completely, because maybe you have some stuff in there, some experiences that your mind doesn't want you to see, because it knows how you went hurt about it, and it knows what does it mean to you, and it wants to keep you safe from it. Step by step, by doing this different practices, you did it with the audio tape, which basically hit the nail. But the most important thing is really getting into safe position, that your mind, I call it the watchdog, moves apart. Say, okay, I don't have to watch everything now. It's all good. I'm in a safe place. And then your mind will start to open up. Again, not maybe from the beginning. And then it's open for changes, because then it really adapts to a different situation. The situation you are now, not back then. And there is, as an audio tape, it's a timeline. I don't know if you know the timeline. It's a kind of also an NLP tool where you go back in a relaxed mode as an adult, and you look at yourself as a child or as a teenager, and then you move with this person, with that children or with that teenager, to the experience as an adult person, and then you reprocess that, having an adult person in your hand. And that we do also with the timeline, which many times it helps to reprocess that experience and attach a different feeling to it. to kind of let it go some of the attachment. I think I totally believe in this because I'm using it every day, still today. The mind adapts to it. It adapts to things which takes it as a truth. If you keep repeating it, it becomes the new reality. And that can go into the negative or the positive here. So whatever you repeat becomes the reality.
Okay, so two things. One is, how do we learn? My understanding is repetition or one major event. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
And then the subconscious mind, you mentioned the word watchdog. So why is the subconscious there? It seems like to someone like myself who is newly getting into this, well, it seems like it doesn't want me to thrive. So is the subconscious mind wired for thriving or is it wired for safety? What is the true purpose of that? It's not there to destroy us. What is it there to do?
It's actually the watchdog. I call it a kind of an analytical part of the mind between the conscious and the subconscious and the unconscious mind. It's the watchdog which actually filters what can go into that subconscious mind and what not. First rule, the first priority of the mind, of the brain itself, is to keep you safe, make you survive, and not to make you happy. So it will definitely always focus on what is not good and what you don't have, what makes you feel bad, because he wants to avoid that. Yes. And he wants to avoid that. And so that's why you keep seeing these things and you keep feeling these things because it's the way the mind is wired. So many people also say, including myself, oh, I'm too negative. No, you are not too negative. It's just the mind does his job. And many brain scans has also shown that when you feel bad and you feel anxious, you feel stressed, your limbic system, which is that part of the mind in the middle, which releases all these emotions, is very active.
Yes.
But if you are happy, you feel good, it's just like not active. But it's also proved that it doesn't care if you feel good. It only cares if you feel bad. So, and I think that's the way we need to understand that if we want our mind to make us happy, we have to do something with it. The mind itself won't do it. It will just focus on keep you safe. And that means no changes, not moving, no spending energy, and making sure that the things of the past never happen again. Maybe you had 1, 2, 3 experiences, and then you project that into the future because everybody's then the same. Your brain starts to generalize. Everybody's like that. Everybody's the same, which obviously is not the case. But that's the hamster wheel we are in. And the more we do this, the more we process this hamster wheel, the stronger they get, the faster they kick in, and the longer they keep running. Not to say the pain, but it's a bit of the negative part of the mind. Okay, it does what it does best, keeping you safe.
Yes,
but not happy.
Happy. Yes, but not happy because. People want the top of the iceberg. They want the success. But if foundationally we don't feel safe in that, we don't believe we're worthy of it. It's like the saying, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And I never really got that. But most of us would rather be right because that means we are safe. We can predict the outcome. So on January 1st, people might make a decision to get fit. That is the goal. I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to get fit. Right. Then they will choose certain actions like going to the gym, changing their diet, and they want a certain result. Case closed. It should be easy as anything, but it's not. So what might be getting in the way of someone wanting this path for themselves, this new path, but they seem to not be able to. And every time they try, it chips away at their confidence. What's missing there?
That's actually a very good thing, a very good question, because it happens to me as well many times until I realized, first of all, if I do a New Year resolution, why that don't work? My mind is not used to that. Before the 1st of January, I keep doing something else, and as I start, and I all of a sudden want something new to do. There are people who can do that, no doubt about it, okay? But most of them are wired not to do it. So you go and you want to fight against the subconscious mind, which is 95% of your power, just by doing this. And if you would see immediate benefits affect, your subconscious mind might be turned into that as well, and then you can go. But most of the time, especially when you go to the gym, it takes a while until you see something.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you make your mind believe that this is the good stuff if you don't see it immediately? So there is a few tricks which I do. And first of all, it's start small. So if I go to the gym, I start it 1 time a week. Then I imagine myself, how do I want to look like in the gym? How do I want to do it? How should my body look like? How should my diet look like? And I really take pictures of people who actually look like that, and it's on my wall.
Mm-hmm.
I see it whenever I get into my room. I see these pictures. I write every morning, today is my intention to spend an hour in the gym. Today I'm going an hour to the gym. And I repeat that so many times until I know it by heart, by soul, that I just do it. And another thing which I combine also in the morning is where I visualize myself being in the gym. Seeing myself already how I would look like when I will be 1 year, 2 years in the gym, really see it. And that's where you motivate your mind to do something. Because the brain doesn't know the difference between a real world and the imaginary world. So you can imagine whatever you want and then cultivate that feeling, because what you imagine is the language of the mind, and what you feel is the language of the body. If you can combine these two, you actually get the body doing it. Yeah. It sounds easy, I know, but for certain people, it's not so easy to imagine that, because I don't look like that. Yes, of course not. And if you keep repeating you don't look like that, you will never look like that.
Yeah. So something you said was start small. I agree with that today, but that's not what most people think, because I want massive results. I want massive changes. Exactly. Why wouldn't I take massive action? And the subconscious mind might have something to do with that. So could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Of course, the subconscious mind, at the end of the day, he has a well-working program. He knows exactly what you can do. He knows exactly what he needs to do in order to keep you under control. And just changing your life from here to here, the moment you use your willpower, it works. But the willpower, like the name already says, is only a power, and it loses power over time. So if your subconscious mind has not the right tape in it, you will just not do it anymore. You will find excuses. There will be always good excuses around, because they come from these tapes. Why are you doing? Start tomorrow. Start whatever it is. And you can also have a kind of starting small, and then you make a plan and say, but it has to be in a intensity that your mind is not always, try to find excuses.
Right.
And if it finds excuses, you really have to sit down and say, okay, why I'm doing it? What's my motivation? What's behind it? And behind, I want to look fine. I want to look nice. I want to be healthy. I want to be, and not say I don't want to gain weight or I want to lose weight or whatever. I want to just be healthy.
Right.
It's like these two programs, like pain, pleasure. That's our two meta programs. The brain always wants to escape pain, go into pleasure. Gym is pain. If you look at that, it's like you have to do something. You have to go there. You have to invest time, and as long as you use your willpower, it works. After that, it doesn't work anymore. But if you, in the same time, you start in the gym, you work with your subconscious mind with the thing I just said, the visualization, the vision board, the writing down of statements, why you do these things. The more your subconscious mind also starts to believe that this is a good thing. And that's actually something which keeps you safe also in the future. And if you combine these things, you go to the gym, but you do also the gym in here. My experience was that now I'm getting more a negative or a bad feeling if I don't go.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. Because I teach my mind so intensively to say, if I don't go in 10 years, I will look like this.
Okay.
Keeping that mind, and they say, oh no, this is painful. This is painful.
Yes.
So basically, imagining why you want to go, or imagining what happens if you don't go. And there is where you have the brain then saying, okay, this is painful. If you don't do anything with your diet, with all this healthy, wellness oriented topics, you will end up having 200-300 pounds. And when I say to people, you have to add pain to that situation which you want to change. People say, yeah, but I had so many pain in the past and so on. But this is different. Pain on the situation you want to change. So you have to exaggerate a little bit, that you make that shift, and your mind says, okay, now I understand. You have to move on. And then you somehow you will feel that there is some energy behind it. If you don't go one day, you feel bad about it. Then you reach your goal, actually.
Okay, so you mentioned before saying what you want versus what you don't want. So I want to be healthy. I want to be strong. I want to be fit, not I don't want to be fat. Or I don't want to be unhealthy. Because when you say I don't want to be unhealthy, what is the brain hearing?
I want to be.
Okay. It still hears unhealthy. So it's like you're saying to say what you want, not what you don't want.
Exactly.
I call that love-based living, but whatever it might be. But also, and that sounds very positive and what we want. However, pain is going to reinforce that drive, because otherwise we're going to stay comfortable. But if we think about where we will be in the future, if we do not get uncomfortable today, it's going to be a lot more uncomfortable in the future. And sometimes it's easy to stay in our present reality and not think about that.
We are actually the masters in anticipating worst case scenarios. So why are we not doing it here? Why are we not anticipating worst case scenario if we don't do it? And again, this pain pleasure, that you can actually analyze many of the situations. That's always the mind works out of pain into pleasure. And most of the things which we have to invest energy, learn new stuff, and move out of, that's always pain. Because the mind doesn't like it. It doesn't like to move. It doesn't want you to do whatever, learn new stuff, use it too much, and that's why you will find a lot of excuses not to do it. And that's why. But if you really imagine yourself, like you said, being this way, if I not moving, and you do that so many times until your mind just says, "Okay, I got it. Okay, I got it. Let's move." Then you will feel differently.
You mentioned lies several times. I call them limiting beliefs, but a lot of clients, week one, I ask them to write out all of their limiting beliefs. The thing is, many people don't realize their beliefs are limiting beliefs, or that these are lies. And I briefly mentioned how when I was younger, I was very promiscuous. So I believed the type of man that I was worthy of having, it's too late for me. So because of my past, I am not worthy of a loving, supportive partner. That was a limiting belief. Let's go back to the gym example. So I want to, if we're going to decisions, actions, and results, I decide that I want to get healthy, but my identity is that I'm a fat, lazy slob. It's just not who I am. It's just not who I am. So what new story would a person need to tell themselves to be able to start to see themselves and shift the identity? Because my understanding is that our programming shapes our beliefs, which shapes our identity. And that's the piece that is an issue, because if the identity is not congruent with the outcome we want, we're going to be pulled in two different directions. And it sounds like safety's almost always going to win.
What we constantly say, and not only out loud, also in here, I say, I'm too old, I'm too blah, 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 blah. This is the typical destructive self-talk. The first thing which you all have to understand is whatever comes from the top is a lie. Whatever comes from the top, they cannot know. We call it in NLP, we call it the map is not the territory. In the reality, is always different. And of course, if you we are a certain way we are today, and we keep saying it's too late for us to get in shape. You want to see different things? You go into the internet, you go into YouTube, you find people over 60, over 70 being in a extreme shape, and they started with 60, for example. So it is possible. So you get your idea that what your mind is saying to you is not the truth. It is just a construction of our wiring in order to, again, implement what it wants to implement to keep you safe, to save energy, and not to, maybe in the past, we had some experiences where we, back in school, the sports day and so, we didn't look nice. People start laughing at us, you're a bit fat and so on, whatever it was. Today, we keep that with us and say, okay, if you go to the gym, you just look nasty. You just look at yourself. Yeah, but that's why I'm going to the gym, to change that. But then it will always give you, again, that feeling from the back that it's basically you are not the guy to go to the gym. You're not, you look at yourself, how do you look like, and so on. So I always see that, and then you are right, what we keep repeating, reading, listening on a continuous basis, and this is where the environment also plays a role, shapes our identity. We become it because we always say, I'm looking terrible. But you can also a little bit shift that and say, this makes me look terrible.
Yep.
And it's already a different perception, a different way on how we look at things. If we associate ourselves with that person, whatever it is, then we become it. And I started actually to tell the people, you have to talk to your guys upstairs here. You have to talk to them. And they replied, but this is schizophrenic. I say, no, this is not schizophrenic, because you do it on a controlled and on a conscious thing. So tell me, why is that the case? And you will basically see very fast that you begin to dismantle this whole words, and there is nothing behind it. And the more you do this, the more you develop your awareness that basically it is all just words. It is all just language pattern, which we keep using it since years. So I think the moment you can just start with the sentence in the morning, and you keep repeating that sentence for a few weeks. You don't stop. Obviously, I'm not saying in 20 days or 40 days. I just don't stop. Just keep doing it. Your perception will shift about yourself. Most of us, we carry on a lot of limiting beliefs from our childhood. The moment we were compared to other children, the moment we were, made in front of the class, saying something, stumbling over words, people laughing, and all these things, which is normal, okay? But it has an impact because our child brain worked differently than today. So we took that as a truth. You are not good enough. You don't deserve it. You are not the guy to go to the gym. You are not whatever. So but then is the question, what am I? And when I ask these questions, many people don't know because they keep repeating what they don't are, what they don't want, what they want, they want to be. They never thought about it. Because at the moment you ask this type of questions, you feel also differently. And that means your mind is, oh, this is completely new stuff here. And how do I deal with it? And then maybe you had that experience too, and then you start doing something, and then after a while you say, this is nothing for me because my mind keeps interfering, keeps saying these stuff, keeps telling me that it's nothing for me. Yes, that will always do. It will never stop doing that because I asked once a Buddhist monk when I was on a meditation retreat, and he asked me, what's your goal in the meditation? I told him, you never quiet mind. And he told me, and then you have to wait until you die. Because the mind will never be quiet. It's just a way of seeing what comes in and just looking a little bit on your language pattern, on your thoughts pattern, or what you think about yourself. That's the first thing. And you have to be honest there. Honesty, what you really think about yourself when you look in the mirror. most of us find always what we don't like at ourselves. We don't say what we like. And that's a reflection of a limiting belief.
Yeah, so many things that you said that I would want to comment on. One would be whatever we believe, we're going to find evidence of that being true. So if we believe that we're too old to get healthy, like you said, then we'll find evidence of that being true. However, what if we challenge that with new evidence? Someone who's 70 years old who is finding love, if that's the goal, or whatever it might be. So our brain needs examples that what we want for ourselves is possible. And I also agree with what you said, that it's so much easier to identify and focus on what we don't want, what we don't have versus what we do. And I ask clients on week 3 to create a vision for their lives. So many people come in and they are so excited to make change. And I ask them what they want in detail, and they've never thought about it. And they could tell me so easily. And I could say this about myself too, but it was so easy to say everything I didn't want. The thing about just all that you said was the language. So in 2018, I was covered in hives, and there was a woman who was working with me, and she was amazing, but I was very miserable. And I kept saying, I'm sick, I'm miserable. And she told me to say that I was healing. And I didn't like that. It was almost like, was I wanting that misery? It would be a false statement to say I am healed, because people say we should make affirmations or statements about what we want. But I found it to be helpful for it to be in the present tense, meaning I am healing, because my brain could get behind that belief. But if it was I am healed, well, my brain would say, no, that's BS. That's not true. So when we are reminding ourselves who we are becoming, do you think it's important to make it in a way that our brain can get behind today and believe, even if that's not where we want to be? But even if we want to be healed, do you think it's beneficial to say I am healing, or what do you think about that?
I think that's a good point. I also hear many times and I understand that many people can do that. Imagine already as it has already happened. I have it here, but I think it's not only about imagining; it's about the feeling we carry on with that imagination. If we say I'm healing every day, which is a powerful statement, and I have the feeling to it, which is giving me that energy to heal, then you will do it. Then you will go for it. But obviously, if we say I'm already healed, and I have still the feeling I have today, that won't change anything. It is important, from my point of view, obviously, to have a clear kind of view which the brain can buy into it and come with you. But in certain things, it's also good to have that things already in mind, what you want to be. Like, for example, you see yourself in the best shape of your life already being there. That's like, it works like a GPS, it's the destination and you want to go there no matter what. And the more you imprint that in your brain, the more your mind will find a way to get there.
Yes.
So it is a kind of, and also I made this experience at the beginning. I don't believe it. The more I do it, the more that starts to shift. The more I start to cultivate that feeling, attached to that vision, to that picture, and then all of a sudden it's not more that I don't believe it. It's more, what's the way? How do I get there? What are the options? What is on the table today which I can take and go? Which were all every day there, but I didn't see it because my focus was just on what I don't want, not on what I want. And I think that's a big deal. But I understand, and that's a good point. If you currently don't believe it, try to shift it a little bit in a way that you can buy into it. But I think, and that's my thing, it will be difficult anyway at the beginning, doing something like this out of the blue, because your mind will anyway say, what are you doing? This is completely nuts. Yes, because it's new. Because it's something new. It's a new picture. It's a new vision. And obviously, yes, it is different. So the more you practice that, you will find a way of shifting. I mean, if we give up after a week or two, that might be not enough. It depends what is your backpack. What is your past, how many of these traumas or of these self-destructive self-talks you did in the past. That's, I mean, the more you keep doing these self-talks, the more you getting this thing, and you hardwire your brain to believe that. So this has to be unwind again.
Yes. One thing that it was presented to me in this way, I don't take credit for this example, but brain is like a computer, and we wouldn't use AOL 3.0 today. We need a software update. So in many ways, some of our beliefs and our thought patterns are outdated, and perhaps at one point they served us and we no longer need that. Maybe we had certain armor energetically around our heart. We don't need that anymore, but we have learned that it's there to keep us safe, which is what the brain wants. So for a lot of people, that just becomes their default when perhaps it's no longer necessary, but people don't know how to let go of these things.
Absolutely. And it's most of our beliefs are outdated. Yes. Again, most of our core beliefs, which are not really easy to change, they are since the first days of our life. I mean, we don't even need to understand the language at that point. I mean, just the way we look at our parents or our neighbors, whatever it is, and then we start to believe that this is true. And to update this belief, you basically have to ask yourself the simple questions. First of all, if you know what you believe from yourself, it's fine if you know. Most of us know the most superficial ones, but the unconscious, subconscious beliefs are difficult to spot. So you have to observe yourself, how you react in certain situation, how do you respond to certain critics or to certain people. And then this is how I started. You know, it was on the left hand, it was a paper and then a letter paper. The left hand was what I think I believe for myself, on the world around me. And on the left-hand side, I wrote down out of a green field what I want to believe about myself and the world. And I know that the first time I made this exercise, by writing down what I want to believe was a bit of, handicapped a little bit. I was not really open because I still was projecting a lot of the past into that. It doesn't make sense to have this belief. It doesn't work anyway for me and so on. So I start to strip it down. The second time I did the exercise was different because I already, stated this belief so many times, the new ones, that I was a bit easier to do the next step and do the next step. So get out of these beliefs is first a little bit to understand, to observe yourself and how you react in certain, and really ask yourself, what is my belief about am I convicted by myself, or am I beating myself up every day? I'm criticizing myself all the time. Why am I criticizing myself all the time? Why is that? Then you find most of these things leads down to one belief: I'm not good enough. That's the I would say most of the basis core belief that most of us have. And so you start from there. And I developed the thing, the mantra for myself, that I'm more than good enough to try whatever I want to try. And then I changed it that I'm more than good enough to do what I want to do. Taking these different steps. And this mantra, this statement, is on my mobile phone, it's on my wall at home. I listen in the morning when I get up. I listen in the evening while falling asleep. It's like brainwashing myself.
Yeah, really.
And after a while, you begin to feel differently. I think it's a thing which you just need to approach, just need to do, and the belief can be changed in terms that you constantly repeat what you want to believe about yourself. And I think being good enough is number one. So this self-love, this self-esteem, I think self-esteem is on the basis of everything. If you have a good self-esteem, you most probably are already self-confident, but you can be self-confident and have a low self-esteem. And that's where, it costs you a lot of energy to be that self-confident when you have a low self-esteem. And that can cause burnouts. That can cause this type of burnout because you are not aligned.
Right.
Changing belief, you can use, again, writing down. You can use audio tapes like you did. This is subliminal tapes, but there are also tapes where you can just record your own voice and listen to it while you're walking, while you falling asleep. The first 30 minutes where falling asleep is a great time to do this. And it will go in. You just have to keep going. You just have to say, I don't stop after 21 days. Not stop. Make it part of your life.
So I have so many more questions that I want to ask you, and I know we're running short on time, but one thing is that you mentioned in the morning. So the morning or before bed. And you also said in your own voice, because a lot of people are concerned that if they do any type of subconscious work and it's from someone else's voice, that makes them feel uncomfortable. I'm comfortable with it. I use my discernment, but recording your own voice is such a beautiful way to do that. So if you were to listen to that and mentally rehearse the person that you want to be, the life that you want to live, the actions you're going to take, why would morning and evening be the best times to do that?
Because in the morning, like in the evening, we shift brainwave states. So while we're sleeping, we are in delta, which is the lowest brainwave. Then we shift to theta, which is a kind of a hypnosis state. And then we shift to alpha, which is a kind of relaxed state, and then to beta, which is our daily stress mode. And in the morning, we shift from delta to beta, and it takes sometimes. Then if somebody calls you in the middle of the night and it gives you a tough message, then it's the wrong time to do it, because you jump from out of to beta. But usually in the morning when you get up, you cross all these brainwave states. So you get up, you take your headphones, and you listen to it. You do a visualization, or you do whatever, because the brain is more receptive, changes that brave state. It's like many people have a clock at home with music. And it depends when this clock is going off and your brainwave state is in theta, you will hear that music the whole day. It's like, running behind you. And it's the same approach. So in the morning, we go from low to high, and in the evening is backwards. While you fall asleep, you also have some. I don't use a headphone to fall asleep because it's a bit difficult, but you can use a Bluetooth speaker. Let it go for 20 minutes, and they switch off automatically after that. And while you're falling asleep, you listen to this stuff.
Yeah, and it's because of the state. So in the middle of the day, it's not that it's wrong, just will you get more influenced by what you're trying to achieve and believe and become if you are in the proper brainwave state for that. To kind of go off of theta state, I think about it right as I'm waking up, right before bed. So that would be a great time to plant some seeds to nourish my mind with what I want to believe. It would not be the time for me to watch murder mysteries, or let's say I'm trying to find a new partner, reading on Facebook about how terrible men are. That's not going to be helpful evidence that I need for myself. We will find evidence of whatever we believe to be true. So for children, because the blueprint of who we are and in our brain, this computer programming that we have, if we need to update the software, it comes from somewhere. My understanding is that it comes from the first 7 years of life, where we are predominantly in theta state, which is why children can learn languages. And I feel like children, I don't have them, but I was one. And it seems as though children are, I think, so in tune, and they can perceive so much. Their ability to articulate may not be as developed, but when it comes to learning, it is amazing. So why is that?
Yes, it's because the brain runs in theta brainwave.
Okay.
And if you learn in that state, it's in. Your subconscious mind sucks it in, and it's in. If you are in later on in beta, you have your analytical mind, and this analytical mind keeps distorting that information based on what you already believe.
Right.
So, and I think the children, and that's really a really important thing. And I also had to experience that with my daughter, which is basically, she's extremely fast in picking up stuff. Even if you don't say anything, they just watch you do stuff, and they repeat. And then later on, you see them say, "Why are you doing this? This is not good for you." Say, "Yeah, but you did it as well." And this becomes your reality, because you actually download this unconscious subconscious belief system for your people around you.
Yes.
And I mean, this can be, it's always people say, some parents say, my child has to learn how to go for it. Yes, which is good, yeah. But there is way of doing and other ways of doing. The moment you know how the mind works, the moment you know what is the mind storing and what is its focus, is to keep you safe. So whenever you say to a child, make sure you don't do this, pay attention here, watch out that step, what does you actually put the child's mind into kind of alert mind, in a kind of prevention mind, a kind of and you also induce that basically whatever the child is doing is not good enough, because you keep saying, don't do this, watch out that step, even if you have a good intention. But you induce actually, whatever you do is just not good enough. And that's what starts to, I saw that myself, and it starts to believe you get insecure, you get uncertainty, you don't know how to behave in certain things, you start to protect yourself even more from outside. So children in the first 1 to, I would say, 7, 8 years are extremely receptive. And if you would learn that in school on how to use the mind for your advantage, not against you,
right,
that would change a lot of things. It's just a missed opportunity. We don't do that. Whatever the reason is, we don't do it.
So one question, I'm not a parent, but if I were listening to this and you said, saying not to do something, is it that you should say, here's what you could do instead? Or could you give me an example of that?
Or don't do this, like you said before, and instead say, don't do this, say directly, do it like this.
Okay.
Or
say what you want versus what you don't want.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes more sense. Okay. So I did get some questions from the audience. Do you have a few minutes to kind of rapid fire through these? If not, I will be respectful. Okay. So, and we might have already addressed some of these, but how does our body keep our past experiences subconsciously? Do you know how that works?
That goes into biology.
Okay.
What we say is basically that the body itself is perceived to be part of the subconscious mind. It's like you take a phone and you have a phone, you want to put in the number, you don't remember the number. The moment you take the phone, your finger starts to tip, because it remembers the movement of that phone. If the keypad somehow stored in certain automaticity in the body, in certain nerve cells, they're all anyway synchronized. But basically, it is a kind of very fascinating automated body-mind connection. It's like you drive a car and you know how to change gears. If you have don't have an automatic, you just drive from A to B without knowing if all the traffic lights were green or not, and all that stuff. Then you get a ticket. This is a different story. So it is stored in the nerve cells. This is how I know from reading in Bruce Lipton's books. He has a book written, The Biology of Belief.
Bruce Lipton, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's very interesting if you want to know how is that stored. But it is in the body, in all the nerve cells. Is that information stored?
And if you're listening, I would also recommend The Body Keeps Score. It's a dense read, but that also will really explain how that works.
Exactly. The Body Keeps the Score is also a great book. Yeah.
Okay. So we already touched on this question. What purpose does the subconscious mind? Is it designed to be helpful? Yes, it's designed to keep us safe. And we've gone into that, but we're going to have to override that and realize this is our brain trying to keep us safe. So I went to an event in 2019. It was Angie Lee, and she said, fear is a liar. We're the ones driving the car, and fear is like a backseat or a backseat driver telling you, take a right on Doubt Yourself Highway. And you're like, no, I'm driving this car. I hear you, but I'm the one driving this car. So It's not that the fear goes away. It's not that the anxiety goes away. But like you mentioned before, our response and our ability to see that and challenge it and reframe or consciously override it, combined with subconscious things, will then allow us to keep going when we otherwise would say, okay, well, turning down doubt highway. So
yes,
that is really the purpose of the subconscious. It is this autopilot.
Yeah, exactly. It automates stuff just to also keep saving energy.
Yes.
You don't have to think about these things anymore.
Exactly. And decision fatigue is very real. So the subconscious wants to keep things simple, safe, and I don't want to be stressed out over something. If I can just be where I know that things are going to be okay, but that's not where the growth happens. Stepping outside of that comfort zone, like we both said, not too quickly, because then it can just feel like a shock. Who am I? What am I doing? This doesn't feel like me. So those subtle changes over time, realizing we didn't become who we are today overnight. So why do we think we're going to unlearn and create these new patterns overnight? And I think that's important too.
It's a good question. It's a good analogy. How long did it take your mind to develop who you are today? And now you come along and you want to do it in 60 days.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you mentioned environment before. I got some questions about that. I have learned about anchors and maybe something sensory, like a smell of coffee. I go in the kitchen, I smell coffee. My brain thinks it's time to go. It's time to get work done. And that could be true in a positive way or a negative way. And I think something that I have on my bathroom mirror, it says, "You are beautiful." And it's just a positive message. On the background of my phone, I have a positive message about having a good attitude. I have reminders all around, because when we're in the same environment, I would assume that we're going to be receiving input that triggers the same thoughts, patterns, and all of that. So how powerful is the environment and changing that?
I think the environment is extremely important. But I also understand that not many people can just change quickly their environment and do it something else. But you can still do what? You can use your imagination to change that environment. And you can implement new anchors. You can override anchors. You can collapse old anchors. But the environment definitely plays a role. And if you have toxic people around you, I mean, I'm so sorry to say that, but you have to get rid of them.
Yeah. And that's hard for a lot of people. It's very easy to bring in the new for some people, but it's very hard to let go of the old, including beliefs.
Exactly. Because you still have that bondage, you still have that feeling of security, because I need to be with this person. Otherwise, I'm lost. That's a belief.
Right.
If I'm not with that people, I will probably end up in the street. I will not be able to pay whatever it is. It might be the case at that point in time, but if you keep rehearsing it, you keep believing it, you keep saying it, that doesn't get better.
Mm-hmm.
That will only get worse. So it's about really understanding and being also here honest with yourself. What is the negative influencing factor in your environment? And then it's the quick question: can you change it or not? If you can change, usually you can change it. And I always start with the imagination, mind work. Imagine yourself imagine yourself solving it. Okay, get rid of that. Maybe it's not a person. Maybe it's a room, or it's a house where you had some bad experience, also where you made that connection.
Sure.
And now it's here. The environment is important. The environment is important, but I think you can prepare and you can rewire yourself also in that environment where you really, you close down from outside, close your eyes, and you work with your imagination, at least to start.
That, and also I would say Post-it notes. You could add little messages, even if you can't move out of your home, but little reminders. Or if you're trying to make certain changes and regarding your diet, but you have ice cream in the fridge and or in the freezer, and that is your go-to, perhaps that's not going to be helpful, because that could trigger the desire to want to eat that ice cream. So remove the things that are going to draw you closer to where you don't want to be, and then add in things that are reminding you of who you're becoming and what you want, and keep that vision in the forefront, because it sounds like the subconscious is going to just flood you with all the reasons why not. And it's kind of like an angel and a devil on your shoulder. Or maybe a better way that I've heard it explained to me is that your ego is very loud and your subconscious is more quiet. And so when we have something come up, just ask, is this ultimately true? And I heard that from Amanda Francis. When I tell myself I can't do this or it's not possible, is that ultimately true? Do I not have the bandwidth for it? Is it not something I desire to do? But could I actually do that? And sometimes I tell myself no, when the answer is I could figure out a way. I just haven't figured it out yet.
Right. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so just a couple more questions. One is a lot of people have relationship anxiety. They have been cheated on or had someone who wasn't very loyal. And then what happens, and I experienced this myself too, that chipped away at my confidence, my self-worth. I'd go out looking for someone too quickly, in my opinion. And then I would almost feel comfortable and safe in a similar dynamic without consciously realizing that. And the same thing would happen. And then what's the story? All people are like this. This is what relationships are like. So what needs to change in a person in order to be able to have a healthier relationship when they have anxiety about it because of their past experiences? What would you say to someone in that situation?
I can only say get first totally in line with yourself. That's number one, because most of the people in this situation, I'm not saying all of them, they somehow make themselves responsible for a failure. Not necessarily, of course you blame everybody else, but the moment you blame someone else, you blame also yourself. Do you think that you wouldn't find anyone else? Do you think that you are just not pretty enough? You are whatever it is,
Right.
What is it? Because that gives you then this kind of drives, this pain for the brain to look into a new relationship as soon as possible, and then you get attached usually to the same type of person you had before. It doesn't really change a lot in your belief system from yourself, who you really are, and what you deserve actually. And that's actually not an easy thing, because many people experience it a little bit different. But I say, if you, and again, believe in yourself strongly and you build that up first, I think you will give already complete different, you radiate it differently towards the outside world. And then you will probably also attract other type of people, the type of partners. But the moment you still are uncertain, you still have this kind of unsecure feeling, or also kind of guilt, being also responsible for why this failed, then it's getting difficult to find another person, because it's the same radiation, it's the same focus, it's the same, and I tell people, how does your partner has to look like? How does he has to be? What type of person he needs to be? And most of them cannot tell me that.
Right.
They don't know. Because they were so insecure of what happened. They were so hurt, and they cannot describe that. And they need certain times until they clean up or they process what happened. Because this feeling are here, and this feeling will always be here until you don't give them space to be. And to give them space to be, you have to feel safe again. You have to be convinced from yourself that you can do that. And sometimes you just need help from other people, who gives you a different perspective from outside. But I think this type of feelings should not be stuffed down on any case. And when you then go out and you look for a new person as soon as possible, you usually stuff it down.
Right.
And they will come back. Next time, if you get hurt again, it will be just even more painful, hurtful. And I think it's such a situation. Take time, go inside, listen to yourself, listen to the feeling, and begin to work on your self-esteem. I think that's and the rest will come, 100%. Yeah.
I fully agree with that, because I was in 2 relationships that were not very healthy. I did not respect myself, and it just got progressively worse. And then Otto Gomes. You've actually done an interview together, and he has been the person who has shattered all of my beliefs about how all men are. And what happened was, in the past, I wasn't being true to myself. I was who I thought these men wanted me to be. And with Otto, from day one, I was very transparent. And instead of judging me for the real me, he said, wow, this is so refreshing. I love that the most about you. And I'm like, what? I've spent so much time trying to be someone that I'm not. I don't know if that was fully conscious, but it's just so freeing to be myself. And I would also tell someone, write down what you want in a partner and ask yourself if you're being that person. You know, we spend so much energy trying to change other people, yet really the only person we can change is ourselves, and that can be challenging enough. So focusing our energy where we can really make an impact versus trying to make someone else into who we want them to be.
Exactly, which won't work anyway.
Yes.
If you want to change someone else, that never works. It changes only if you change, because then the other person maybe adapts or it leaves. And if it leaves, then it was the wrong person, and that's okay.
Right. And that's the story. That's, we make meaning to someone left me. So this must mean all people will leave me. I'm going to go find somebody else and they're going to leave me because I didn't work or process anything. So I just jumped into the same dynamic, which feels comfortable. Even if it's not what we want, it's comfortable. And that's what the subconscious wants. And I think people are just missing that piece. It was such a life changer to really get that. And it's not to blame ourselves, and it's not to blame other people, but we have to take an inventory of what we think, what we do, how we live. And if we continue to be in the same dynamics, guess what the common denominator is? It's us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You said it. You hit the nail, what you just said. It's exactly this. We always look for the less painful solution. Again, it's a pleasure. And if the pleasure is, this person now fits, I take it and whatever, and it turns out to be worse than before.
Yeah.
And then you really have to spend time with yourself, going inwards, understand your feelings, understand why you have these feelings, what is behind this narrative you keep telling yourself all the time. And then you slowly get there, because the more time you spend with yourself, the more your subconscious mind opens up.
Yes. I mean, another thing is that I used to believe that if I spent time by myself, I was a loser. So why would I do that? But I couldn't get to know myself when there was so much noise around me. So in 2016, I was a traveling nurse and I was very hard on myself instead of viewing it as an opportunity to get to know myself. So you're a loser. I mean, my self-talk was not very good. I also can appreciate that today because that's not how I speak to myself and I can see the growth. But for me to have a better life, a better partner, a better career, better everything, I had to go back in and say, hey, what from my past do I want to bring with me? And what do I need to let go of, unlearn and relearn? And it's a beautiful process. And I'm so grateful that you're taking people through this. And my final question, although I have more, but this is so interesting to me because it's been the thing that's changed my life. And it sounds like yours as well. How to tap into the subconscious mind to heal repressed feelings, emotions, and memories. So you can do it with someone, but I'm assuming they're asking at home. Or would you say working with someone is the best way to do it? How can a person start to begin this work in addition to what we've already said? Having a vision, keeping it in your forefront, looking at it in the morning. If you want to speak that vision out and listen to it in your own voice, especially first 30 minutes or last 30 minutes of the day, questioning what you believe to be true. But that's still not fully getting into the subconscious mind to heal these deeper things. So where would you send someone to learn more or to get into that?
There are different ways of doing this, or try or start doing this. One of them, what we all said, it's also to listen to these messages while you're falling asleep. That's already tapping into it. But obviously not to release the feelings. That's implementing a new program. My best experience I did with this is just sit with the feeling. Just really sit there alone, close your eyes and focus on the feeling, and focus so long on the feeling until it starts to decrease a little bit. And then just observe what type of pictures are coming. It's also related to a timeline exercise. A timeline exercise, you start with the feeling. You tap into that feeling and you relax. It's like in a meditative state, and then you start tuning into that feeling, and then certain pictures comes up. The more relaxed you are, the more pictures comes up which are somehow associated with the feeling. And then you see sometimes pictures comes up which you never expected. And it requires a little bit of practice, obviously. It's not happening the first time like this. As we said, just your subconscious mind closes down until it feels safe enough to open up. And then you go into that scene as an adult with the girl, with the woman, or, yourself as a younger age, and you revisit that scene with the girl in your hand and saying, okay, see, I'm here for you. I'm always here for you. I will always be here for you. And then you just relive it. And it's like, rewriting the story of that experience. But to know which experience you have to tap into the feeling. You have to sit with the feeling. And I also had my experience where I was there sitting with the feeling. Nothing really came up. It was just blank. And then I started naming the emotion I was feeling. I thought I was feeling. And one was, for example, loneliness. And the moment I articulated loneliness, that feeling disappeared immediately. And it never came back. Something else came back, because it's like a stack. You have different feelings, you stuff down all the time, and you start to let them go one after the other. So tapping in your subconscious mind is feeling oriented, is picture oriented, is sound oriented. It's not arguments, or not, if this happens, then it's mostly the ego or the mind working. But the subconscious mind is an habitual mind. Look at it, spend time with the feeling, do a timeline. Also tapping is wonderful to tap into it. This working with the tapping tools, and see what works. It doesn't mean that there is not one tool generic for everybody. You have to a little bit try it out. That makes it interesting. For certain people, not interesting because they don't have the patience to do it, which I understand. But I think you will see certain the more you do this, tapping in, sitting with the feeling, just observe it, and really, develop that compassion with that feeling, and then this picture will come 100%.
Amazing. Yeah. And the mind is so powerful. So people say mindset is everything. I wouldn't say that it's everything, but it's certainly the first domino to fall. And if your mind cannot get on board that something is possible for you, it would be very likely that your subconscious would talk you out of it, because it's not possible. And like you said, the subconscious mind does not want to expend energy on something that it does not believe is possible.
Exactly.
So that is why the programming, the beliefs, the identity, really go back and look at those things. And if you're struggling with that, work with someone, because they can help you dig a little bit deeper. And sometimes you can't always see it when you're in it.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes you don't see it because you're running in that wheel.
Right.
And some of us say, well, wait a minute, you're running, but you are in a hamster wheel. So you're not moving. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's just about getting aligned, and the body is connected. And I worked in the hospital for many years, and it seems as though that is not the belief. There is a doctor for this organ and that organ, and they're in the same body. And once we start to realize how connected everything is, I think it's going to change so many people's lives. And this is what has helped me heal, because physically I've made a massive transformation from my hives, but that was not the hardest thing to heal. The most challenging thing was to sit with my thoughts, to slow down. And that came from a belief that my worth came from always being on and all of that. So working with someone, a coach, can help you just narrate your life, the story that you're telling, and then get that feedback, which can be a really powerful start to changing.
Yes.
And, I am truly so honored to have this conversation with you today. And I really hope it reinforces things that I've shared with my clients. And, I'm not an expert in this, but I would very strongly consider becoming certified in NLP. Is there a program that you really like or recommend for this? And how long is it?
There are different programs available. I did myself with a friend of mine in LA was that, but these programs are all the same, have the same certificate. So there is a basic program, the NLP practitioner, and then you have the NLP master practitioner, which is then more really into programming, into hypnosis, and then you have the trainer at the very end, which is kind of an elevated thing. And I would suggest there are so many NLP institute where you can have, and I would just try to get, if you want to do it somewhere where you have Richard Bandler's approval, Richard Bandler certificate behind it, because he is the guru. He and John Grinder, these two guys, Richard Bandler.
Okay.
Richard Bandler and John Grinder were the founder of NLP.
Okay. So there's not a specific program per se.
There are the NLP practitioner and the NLP master practitioner, and several companies are offering that. But I would only go for one which I get that certificate from Richard Bandler. Several of these companies are accredited by Richard Bandler's team, and so they are fine with it. So,
okay. Maybe, I don't know if there's a website or somewhere where we could find these things. It's something I would love to do myself, but I want to do training from someone who I respect. And once again, I'm just amazed at your content. It helps me so much, and I want to learn. So if you have any websites or anything like that are good to look things up, we'll include it in the show notes. And then how can people work with you, and how long do you usually work with people when you're doing this type of work together?
I have a coaching program, which is 12 weeks. That's
12 weeks. Okay.
the usual time span. And there are people which want to do it in 6 weeks. They want to pack it. It really depends. What's your current status? How is your emotional state? How fit are you in order to get that journey? But usually it's 12 weeks. We do one call a week, but then with certain challenging homework, I call it, where you start the thinking process, where you look a little bit, you start observing yourself. Which many people have a little bit of struggle at the beginning, but then they develop a kind of fun to observe themselves, and this is the main of not taking everything too serious then. And then we look at why do I behave the way I behave today? What is behind it? And then we start, developing a new, I call it the brain 2.0. And then a kind of really hands-on procedures to use during the day in order to get there.
Amazing.
It's a 12-week program, yeah.
Well, you might have yourself a new client, because I am so interested in learning, and I've worked with a medical intuitive, which was very helpful. She did EMDR, and I struggled with that because at the time I couldn't feel in my body. I was all in my head. So like you said, what works for one person is different than what works for another.
Yes.
But what an amazing resource you are. You're such a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate your time. I know we went over, but thank you. And is there anything you want to share before we sign off for today?
No, I just want to tell the people, it's never too late.
It's never too late. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Never.
Thank you. Okay. So I will put in the show notes. Do you have a website, or should I send people to Instagram, or both?
I have both. I have a website, and I can send you the.
Amazing. We'll put it in the show notes, and then please follow his account. And it is spelled your first and last name, correct?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So Ernesto Parisii. His content is amazing. And I actually don't have many notifications on. This is one of the only accounts that I have notifications on because it's so powerful. So thank you again. I am so honored. And this was amazing.
Thank you. Same for me. Thank you.
Amazing.
I am someone who has historically used powdered makeup, but as I'm expanding my options and learning new things, my skin looks better when I use a liquid foundation. And RMS Beauty is a line that I'm loving when it comes to makeup. The first product is Re-Evolve Radiance Locking Primer. So I will put this on first, and this is neutral for any skin tone. And then the actual foundation is called Re-Evolve Natural Finish Foundation. I use the color 00, and this is a full coverage foundation. So other brands like Ilia I really like, but it does not provide the coverage that this foundation does. You can save 10% on RMS Beauty at Citrine with my code Ashley Taylor Wellness, and I love a lot of their makeup products. The blush, but I have to say, if you're looking for a foundation that is cleaner and that has great coverage, I would check this one out. Thank you for listening to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review, ideally a 5-star review if you loved it. All of this is free of charge and really helps me to be able to run the podcast. If you take a screenshot and tag me, I'll repost you and shout you out on Instagram. So tag Ashley Taylor Wellness and High Maintenance Hippie podcast. If you have any feedback or guests that you'd like to have, I would love to hear from you so that I'm not just talking at you. I really want to deliver things that are valuable. So send me an email with any feedback, suggestions, or ideas for guests at ashley@ashleytaylorwellness.com. And I will leave you with a disclaimer. Please know that this is not medical advice or replacement for seeking medical care. Everything discussed on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. Always consult with your medical provider before making any changes. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.